Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're exploring a paradigm-shifting concept that, honestly, might just change how you look at your entire life. I want you to consider a pretty radical idea for a second. The absolute biggest obstacle standing between you and the life you actually want, it isn't your boss, it isn't the economy, and it definitely isn't bad luck. It's internal. It's you.
Okay, let's dive into this. The insights we're unpacking today come straight from Brianna Wiest's incredibly acclaimed book, The Mountain Is You. Now, historically, we've always used mountains as metaphors for these giant, insurmountable external challenges, right? But Wiest proposes something different. She says your personal mountain is actually formed by coexisting but completely conflicting needs right inside of you. It's like a structural fault line in your own psyche. And the crazy part? We all have one.
I want you to really genuinely think about that for a second. Are you the only thing standing in your own way? You know, when we hit rock bottom or when we feel completely stuck in these negative loops despite trying our absolute hardest, we kind of have to look at the common denominator. If there's an ongoing gap between where you are right now and where you want to be, and your efforts are just constantly met with your own resistance, well, we need to talk about why that's happening.
As this quote brilliantly lays out, scaling this mountain means we've got to reconcile two totally distinct parts of ourselves. We have to unite the conscious part of you, the part that actively, logically knows what you want to achieve, with the unconscious part of you. And that unconscious part is entirely unaware of the deep, hidden fears that are actually holding you back.
The myth of self-sabotage. So, to get over this mountain, we need to completely dismantle what you think you know about your own failures.
Let's look at the traditional definition of self-sabotage, which, let's be honest, paints a pretty bleak picture. On the surface, when we completely ruin a great relationship, or procrastinate on some massive career opportunity, or break a diet we swore we'd stick to, it definitely looks like a masochistic product of self-hatred. It just looks like we lack willpower or confidence, or that we're actively trying to punish ourselves.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the massive paradigm shift we need to make here. Self-sabotage is absolutely not a flaw. It's actually a misguided coping mechanism. Think of it like an invisible bodyguard. Your subconscious is intelligently designing these destructive behaviors to meet an unfulfilled need or to help you avoid an uncomfortable emotion. You aren't hurting yourself. Your brain literally thinks it's fiercely protecting you.
The famous psychologist Carl Jung understood this perfectly. There's this wild story where, when Jung was a kid, he took a spill and hit his head at a school he absolutely hated. Well, soon after that, he started having these uncontrollable fainting spells. He unconsciously developed a physical symptom just to avoid the uncomfortable reality of going to a school where he felt he didn't fit in. Our minds will literally create incredible, debilitating roadblocks just to avoid dealing with our actual uncomfortable needs.
How sabotage hides. So, if our brain is doing all of this to protect us, it rarely does it out in the open, right? Let's hold up a mirror and explore the really sneaky, everyday ways this misguided protection actually shows up in our lives.
Self-sabotage often hides right in plain sight as these invisible symptoms. We're talking about constantly uprooting your life, crippling perfectionism, always being busy, living in chronic disorganization, or constantly judging other people. And what's super fascinating here is that society actually praises some of these, like being a perfectionist or being book solid every minute of the day. We wear our exhaustion like a badge of honor, but in reality, they're just highly sophisticated avoidance tactics.
And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when you break down those exhausting behaviors. The truth is pretty eye-opening. When you're constantly busy, your real objective is often just distracting yourself from a life you aren't really happy with. When you're constantly uprooting, moving to new cities or switching jobs every year, you're usually avoiding the vulnerability of deep, long-term attachment. And perfectionism? Wow, it's rarely about high standards. It's actually a way of dodging the messy, required work and the terrifying fear of failing. I mean, you can't fail if you never finish perfectly, right?
Letting go of these familiar cover-ups is terrifying. As Wiest writes, your new life is going to cost you your old one. Let that sink in. It is going to cost you your comfort zone. The coping mechanisms you've built might be causing you pain, sure, but they are familiar. Releasing them means stepping out into the absolute unknown.
The subconscious engine. So, to step into that unknown, we kind of need to look under the hood. Let's explore the subconscious engine that actually drives these deeply ingrained behaviors. A major part of this engine is a concept by Gay Hendricks called the upper limit. Basically, your upper limit is your own personal tolerance threshold for feeling good.
We love to think that human beings are wired to just seek endless happiness, but the reality? Human beings are actually wired for comfort and familiarity.
We all have this baseline, this 100% capacity for the exact amount of happiness we subconsciously feel we deserve. When things get too good, when we surpass that 100% mark, our subconscious engine straight up panics. It slams on the brakes. We suddenly pick a random fight with our partner, or we mysteriously get sick, or we procrastinate on a huge, life-changing deal. We sabotage the good things simply to bring our happiness levels crashing back down to our familiar baseline of discomfort. Crazy, right?
But notice how predictable human irrationality becomes once you see how our core commitments battle our core needs. For example, if you act out a desperate, intense need to be in control of absolutely everything, what you actually crave deep down is trust. If you act out a need to be constantly loved by everyone around you, your true unfed need is self-love. It's a direct inverse. The less you feed your underlying core need, the louder and more destructive your self-sabotaging commitment gets.
Triggers are your guide. So how do we actually fix this? Well, the answer lies in the very things that upset us the most. We have to use our triggers as guides, essentially turning our darkest emotions into a compass.
So the crucial point is this. Your negative emotions are not the problem. They are the messenger. Your triggers don't just exist to highlight unresolved trauma or to make you miserable. They're like blaring sirens, desperately trying to point you toward your true freedom and your unmet needs.
Let's completely reframe how we look at these emotions, starting with anger. Anger's shadow is aggression and lashing out at people. But anger's true purpose? It's highly transformative. It's there to show you exactly where your boundaries are being crossed. Letting yourself feel a pure, honest rage at your own stagnation is very often the spark, the exact catalyst you need to finally mobilize and change your life.
Then there's jealousy. We usually think of it as just bitterly judging other people's accomplishments, but if you flip the script, jealousy is an incredibly accurate map. Look closely at who you envy. That bitter feeling is actually just profound sadness that you aren't allowing yourself to pursue the exact same thing. It shows you precisely what you truly desire for yourself.
Let's move to and see how this builds, bringing us to the heaviest emotion of all, regret. Regret feels like this endless, agonizing guilt over the past. But regret's true purpose isn't to punish you for yesterday. It's literally an urgent instruction manual for your future. It's your brain screaming at you to ensure you make entirely different choices going forward so you don't miss out on life.
To harness these messengers without destroying your life in the process, you need healthy emotional processing. It's a really simple but absolutely vital three-step method. First, you need to get crystal clear on what actually happened to upset you. Second, you must validate your feelings. It is okay to feel the way you do. And third, determine a logical course correction. The entire goal here is to disconnect impulsive, self-sabotaging actions from the intense feelings that are naturally going to arise when you start breaking your bad habits.
And a massive part of that course correction is overcoming our own pride. Practicing non-judgment through non-assumption is absolutely key here. When we learn to genuinely congratulate others on their success, instead of judging them from a place of insecurity, we actually open up our own psychological pathways to loving ourselves. It literally allows us to receive that exact same success.
And that really brings us full circle to the core philosophy of this entire explainer. When you face your behaviors, when you decode your triggers, and when you finally allow yourself to be happy without hitting the brakes, you realize the ultimate truth. In the end, it is not the mountain that you must master, but yourself.
The obstacles in your life are just reflections of the unmet needs inside of you. So, I'll leave you with this. What is your mountain, and are you finally ready to climb it? Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next explainer.